Now at 5, the search is on for a killer after someone opened fire at a graduation party. What Salt Lake City police want you to know.
And it's been a warm weekend, but we see some relief off in the horizon. We'll tell you when the temperatures will drop coming up in the forecast.
And tens of thousands of Utahns putting pride on full display. We're going to take you to this massive parade in downtown Salt Lake, one of the first since the pandemic.
Live from Utah's news leader, Fox 13's Live at 5 starts right now.
Well, after things were dramatically changed for 2020, of course, due to COVID-19, 2021's Pride Parade in Salt Lake City was back today. And in a big way, you could say, this pride flag carried by dozens of people marching down State Street, seen right here from our UDOT camera. It was just one part of today's special Pride celebration. Thanks so much for joining us this afternoon. I'm Amy Nay. It wasn't just the march this morning, but the Pride celebrations this weekend are still going strong. Fox 13's Sydney Glenn joins us live right now from the Sun Trap Bar in downtown Salt Lake, where people are celebrating. Sydney.
Thousands of people have made their way here to the Sun Trap after going to that Pride March earlier today. About 20,000 people were actually at the Pride March today, which is much smaller than you would normally see, but much larger than the one last year because there was none last year due to COVID-19. The COO for the Utah Pride Center says it was beautiful to see everyone together again after Pride events were canceled last year. And while there were certainly a lot of people here today, Jonathan Volk says they really did have to end up scaling down the event.
We really wanted to get back to how Pride started. Pride started as a protest and a rally and a march, and that's what we brought back for this year specifically, because we couldn't have food vendors and floats and have a super large gathering.
Volk says planning has already started for next year with hopes that normal crowds can be back again. Here at the Sun Trap, a spokesperson says this has been one of their busiest weekends ever, even pre-pandemic. And you can kind of see over here the roads closed. There's a lot of people, and there's even a pop-up COVID-19 vaccine clinic. Live in downtown Salt Lake City, Sydney Glenn, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Sydney, thanks so much. Another top story that we're following is, of course, the weather. If you've been out in Denali, you know it's been hot. This is a live look right now from our Natural History Museum of Utah camera, high above Salt Lake City, looking down on the valley there. We've seen a lot of hot weather this past week, so we check in with Breck right now to hear more about this cool down he's been talking about. Hi, Breck.
Yeah, hello. Well, yeah, we are seeing some cooler temperatures here throughout the afternoon. Even today, yesterday, we were in the upper 90s, threatening records. Friday, of course, getting up to that record of 100 degrees in Salt Lake City, avoiding the 90s even today, at least at this hour. Currently, we're 88 degrees in Ogden, 89 in Salt Lake City, cracking into the low 90s, Lehigh, Provo as well. We've had this little surface front kind of stall near the point of the mountain, so behind it, we're seeing those cooler temperatures, even 70s as you turn towards Preston. Now, for eastern Utah, it is hot, low to mid 90s from Vernal through Moab, 88 right now in Cedar City, near 100 degrees in St. George. We show you the temperature change over the past 24 hours, noticing temperatures a little bit cooler across the south, more noticeable though, especially as you go Salt Lake City northward. Temperatures anywhere between 5 to 8 degrees cooler. How about 11 degrees cooler in Wendover? Now we have some winds out of the northwest along the Wasatch Front. Some stronger southwest winds turning towards west central southwestern Utah. You can see Cedar City, Milford. Of course, that's a concern as we do have some fires burning both across southwestern and southeastern Utah. Now yesterday we had those isolated afternoon thunderstorms. Not the case today. Yes, a little lingering moisture with looking at radar, some green near Vernal, but again, not much of this actually hitting the ground. And again, along the Wasatch Front, it looks to be dry, as it will be clear moving for the rest of the afternoon into the evening. Yes, temperatures in the 80s, potentially getting up to 90 degrees. Then we cool off. We'll be looking at partly cloudy skies here in the overnight hours. And we're on a cooling trend. But again, it's gradual, kind of bouncing back and forth. But there is one day I think you're going to like some nice, cool temperatures on the way. We'll show you that in the 7-day forecast coming up in just a few minutes.
Thanks so much. We are watching several fires in our state right now. The main one burning is the Mammoth Fire in Garfield County. That one is threatening some structures. It's burned more than 500 acres since it sparked last night. In fact, 280 homes we're told right now, are threatened. At least 150 people have been evacuated. Firefighters have had no luck containing these flames. The cause of the fire is under investigation. The Benyon Creek fire in Utah County has burned approximately 350 acres this weekend. It, too, has not been contained. This wildfire is burning in very remote, rugged terrain. Red flag weather conditions are making containment efforts challenging for crews. And another one, this is a new fire in Grand County. This one is called the Turner Park Fire. Smoke is visible if you are driving along I-70. This one was started by lightning. It has only burned about 19 acres. And in this case, firefighters say forward progression, fortunately, has been stopped. High winds are expected to be a threat, however, in the area for the rest of the day. And now to a developing story. Salt Lake City police looking for the people behind a deadly drive-by shooting at a graduation party overnight. This happened at a home along General Drive near West Point Park. 5 people in total were shot. 1 man died. He has been identified as 20-year-old Sean Amone. The other 4 were taken to the hospital. Those victims were in stable condition at last check. They were all men around 19 to 20 years old.
It was very chaotic on the scene. And I know the officers had a hard time initially trying to figure out if it was friends that heard and came to the scene or were at the scene when it occurred.
Yeah, there were a lot of people involved initially. Police say there even may have been 2 separate scenes. At some point last night, some of the same people who were at this party were in the downtown area. Now investigators are trying to figure out if that's where the conflict began. Salt Lake City Police would like to hear from you if you think you have any information that can help them in their investigation. Also developing right now, police are searching for someone who shot and killed a man at a South Jordan house party overnight. Police were called out to a home at 14th West and 114th South just before 2 a.m. 2 groups of people reportedly got into a fight. After that broke up, one group came back and someone in that group started firing into the crowd. A 19-year-old was hit in the chest and he died at the hospital. Investigators are still trying to identify suspects. Again, if you have any information in this case to help detectives at South Jordan Police, who would like to hear from you? We go to southern Utah right now. Parts of Zion National Park were closed today because of a search and rescue operation in the Narrows earlier this morning. The temporary closed areas include the Temple of Sinawava shuttle stop, Riverside Walk, and the Narrows, very popular areas. Mystery and Orderville Canyons were also affected. We don't yet know who the missing person is or when that person vanished. We'll keep you up to date on this one as soon as we get more information.
Come out now, you're gonna get bit!
He had over 37 puncture wounds.
Hey, stop fighting!
And the canine is one of the most versatile tools that we have.
Well, some police dogs just sniff out drugs or bombs. Then there are the canines that are trained to attack. In Salt Lake City, one officer has been charged with crimes for ordering his canine to bite people who did not appear to be a threat. And now a joint investigation by Fox 13 News and the Salt Lake Tribune has looked at body cam video to find how many other people were bit after they surrendered. We do want to warn you, some of the video in this story is graphic. Here's Fox 13 investigative reporter Nate Carlisle.
Hit that guy! Hit him! Hit!
You see our client standing on the counter of the Burger King with his hands in the air, completely giving himself up. And the officers pulled our client off the counter. And then the canine officer ordered the dog to hit several times. Near as his family could tell, he had over 37 puncture wounds.
Stop fighting the dog!
It's not an isolated incident. Fox 13 and the Salt Lake Tribune analyzed 39 body camera videos from the 3 largest police departments in Salt Lake County: Unified Police, West Valley City, and Salt Lake City. In 8 of those videos, a suspect had their hands up or were face down when the dog attacked. In 7 cases, a canine continued to bite even after the suspects were in handcuffs.
Well, it depends on what your definition of complying is.
Joe McBride is president of Salt Lake City's police union. He says just because someone's hands are up or the person is lying on the ground doesn't mean they're not a threat.
If they're in a situation where they can still access a weapon, or they can still flee, or they're in a vehicle, or they can do something that puts the officer in jeopardy, they're not necessarily compliant.
Salt Lake County District Attorney Sim Gill is reviewing 106 canine bite cases over 4 years to determine whether the handlers committed any crimes.
As a blanket statement to ask people to freeze when they're in the depth of that attack, or it's happening right now, is probably an unrealistic expectation for every individual.
Anu Asnani is an assistant professor of psychology at the University of Utah who studies fear-based disorders.
Hey, stop fighting! Stop fighting my dog!
She said some people may panic when confronted with a canine and not respond to police commands.
I'll often say to folks who regret, for instance, that they were getting bitten by a dog and they tried to fight the dog off and it made it worse. A lot of the work that I do is talk about what else was your other option? You thought you were going to die.
Screw him off. I got the arm. I got that. Hold still, lady. Don't fight.
In Salt Lake City, Nate Carlisle, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Tonight on Fox 13 News at 9, Nate will show us more videos of canine attacks and talks to Salt Lake County District Attorney Sim Gill about why some bad police conduct will go unprosecuted. You can also find a version of this story by our news partners at the Salt Lake Tribune right now at sltrib.com.
As more Americans get the COVID-19 vaccine, the U.S. looks to increase global vaccination rates. I'm Charles Watson in Atlanta. I'll have the latest coming up.
Plus, see the touching way one West Jordan neighborhood is trying to pay tribute to a young boy whose life was tragically cut short this weekend. We're back in 60 seconds. Turning now to the push to vaccinate Utah. As of today, more than 1,252,000 Utahns are fully vaccinated for COVID-19. That adds up to 39% of Utah's population. 47% of people have received at least one COVID shot, and nearly 11,000 vaccine doses were administered since yesterday's report. There are 223 new COVID-19 cases reported by the State Health Department today. The rolling 7-day average of positive COVID cases is now 5.7%, and no new deaths were reported now for the second day in a row. Meantime, the U.S. is pledging to send millions of COVID-19 vaccine doses overseas as they look to increase the global vaccination rate. Fox's Charles Watson has the latest on this from Atlanta.
More than 168 million Americans have received at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. And as the country gets closer to herd immunity, the Biden administration is making global vaccinations a top priority. The president announcing an initial shipment of 25 million surplus doses will be sent overseas, distributed through the United Nations COVAX program.
The United States is leading international relief efforts in an open and cooperative spirit.
750,000 of those doses going to Taiwan. 3 U.S. senators traveling there this weekend after Taiwan accused China of hindering their efforts to secure vaccines as the outbreak there continues.
It was critical to the United States that Taiwan be included in the first group to receive vaccines because we recognize your urgent need.
Meanwhile, the CDC director is urging parents to get their teens vaccinated after the hospitalization rate for those between the ages of 12 and 17 rose in April, with 1 in 3 who were hospitalized needing to be admitted to the intensive care unit.
It's almost as if things have normalized and the pandemic just went away. The sad truth is the virus is still around.
And today, First Lady Dr. Jill Biden is joined by Dr. Anthony Fauci, the two traveling to New York City to visit a vaccination clinic. In Atlanta, Charles Watson, Fox 13 News, Utah.
And in more national news this weekend, President Joe Biden rejected a new counteroffer on infrastructure from Republicans. But his transportation secretary says the White House is still hopeful for a bipartisan agreement despite weeks of negotiations. John Lawrence reports.
The Biden White House's infrastructure plan is still under construction.
There are a lot of conversations going on among a lot of members of the Senate, and over on the House side, on Wednesday, there's going to be a markup for a key element of infrastructure policy. So lots going on right now, but still lots of daylight, honestly, between us and our Republican friends.
Despite that daylight, the Transportation Secretary is defending the administration's decision to continue talking with Republicans over going it alone. Democrats and Republicans are still billions of dollars away from securing a deal as the 2022 midterm elections grow closer.
Republicans are going to be talking about defining themselves based on our differences on things like what is infrastructure.
Biden has a paper-thin majority in the Senate, so he needs the backing of key Democratic moderates like Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia to get the package through without Republican support. Manchin says he wants to bridge the gap with the GOP.
We need a bipartisan infrastructure bill. We most definitely need that. And infrastructure is something that's been delayed for far too long by past administrations. So it's time for us to move forward.
But for both sides, the clock is ticking.
And there's not a lot of policy there. This is just numbers. It's helping the country, and we ought to be able to find a resolution on that. If we can't, that spells trouble.
John Lawrence, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Well, today is a special day, and dignitaries, military veterans, and their families gathered outside the French village of Vers-sur-Mer today for the unveiling of a memorial paying tribute to those under British command who died on D-Day and during the Battle of Normandy. The inauguration of the memorial is one of several ceremonies that were held to commemorate the 77th anniversary of the landing of more than 160,000 Allied soldiers on the Nazi-occupied Normandy shore on June 6, 1944. The assault led to the liberation of France and Western Europe from Nazi control. Quite a day to remember. 77 years and still such amazing bravery. We need to salute them.
Well, checking in on your weather. The focus here, of course, where we do have some stronger winds central and southern Utah. Again, high fire weather watch here across portions of the state. And we do take focus, of course, with that wildfire burning towards southwestern Utah specifically. We look at the Mammoth Fire as you go from Cedar City eastward, just south of Panguitch Lake. Current conditions, let me step out of the way. You can see temperatures in the low 80s at this hour. Winds out of the south at 12 miles per hour. We had calm conditions this morning throughout the afternoon, winds picking up. We're seeing sustained winds across southern, west central Utah, anywhere between 15 to 25 miles per hour. In combination, you see that low humidity at 12%. Definitely a concern there. As the red flag warning, again, across most of the state, we've just have seen this red flag warning move northward, now incorporating many counties across northwestern Utah. As you'll see, we're going to see winds come tomorrow a little bit stronger as we push further northward. Let me show you from the models, looking at the winds as we go through tonight, because there's one area of concern even as we look overnight. We get 10 o'clock towards midnight, some winds picking up as we look along the southern end of the Wasatch Front, Juab County, Tooele County moving further southward. Even as we look at some of the mountain areas, we could see wind gusts 30 to upwards of 40 miles per hour. That wind focus moves on, and then tonight we see overnight winds dying off just a bit, but a return come tomorrow afternoon, as you can see, pushing further northward. That's why we see Box Elder, Tooele County getting in the mix, and potentially might incorporating Cache County's look towards tomorrow. So with these low humidities, again, we're going to be focusing on the fire concern moving forward. It's a hot day out there, but not as hot as we experienced yesterday. 99 degrees in St. George. Friday, you're at 105. Yesterday, you were about 101. So a little cooler here this afternoon, but again, looking at those winds and that low humidity level, that's been the focus throughout that region. 89 currently. Now, on average, we should be at 80 degrees for afternoon highs. So we're still finding afternoon highs about 10 degrees above normal, but plenty of sunshine. We don't see the shower threat as we saw yesterday. That focus is turned towards northeastern Utah, but limited activity throughout that region. Not expecting to see much. It's fairly dry. We've got this westerly flow, a little front pushing through. We look upstream, another front, but this one is going to actually move towards the northwest and keep that southwesterly flow going, and now allow temperatures to creep back up. But the next cold front that hits by the middle of the week, the specific timing on Wednesday, that will be dropping temperatures and feeling quite nice as we head into Thursday. It's going to be dry though tonight. tonight, we're going to be looking at mostly clear skies. Overnight lows a little bit cooler, still in the 60s as you go from Salt Lake City through Provo, upper 50s in Vernal. Looks like we'll get down to about 68 degrees in Moab, 67 in St. George tomorrow. As I mentioned, that southwest flow ahead of that first front, allowing temperatures to return to the low 90s as we go from Salt Lake City through Provo, upper 80s in Logan, upper 90s in Moab. It's going to be a mostly sunny day, but it's also going to be a breezy day, especially throughout the afternoon. Now for St. George, you get mid-90s, and then it's low 90s, hovering in the low 90s up through Thursday, even upper 80s on Thursday, back into the triple digits Saturday and Sunday. Looks like it'll be dry for the next 7 days. Northern Utah, low 90s in the forecast up until Wednesday. Then look what happens with that, again, second cold front. You're down into the mid-70s for one day. Mid-80s Friday, that's not too bad, but the heat returns next weekend, Saturday and Sunday, low to mid-90s. So it's, again, summer heat, but bringing a little spring mix back in, at least temperature-wise, but again, no rain in the forecast.
Thanks so much, Brack. Still ahead, we're going to show you how some big-name companies are helping to protect the Colorado River. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Thanks so much for joining us here for our 5 o'clock news at Fox 13. I'm Amy Nay. For decades, water managers and environmentalists have worked to keep a critical stretch of the drought-stressed Colorado River healthy enough to support endangered fish. This year, they're getting a boost from some of the biggest names in corporate America. Jared Smith, with our partners at the Water Desk at the University of Colorado Boulder, takes a closer look.
There's a couple key times during the year when flows can drop too low to support the endangered fish that live here. So we've been working with business entities, and those entities help us to buy the water when it's needed to support the fish.
Coca-Cola, as well as Coors Seltzer and Intel Corp, have made a 10-year commitment to the Colorado River to provide more security for flows increasingly stressed by drought and climate change.
As you can imagine, water's pretty important to Coca-Cola. So we have a real vested interest in improving water security. For every drop we use, we give one back.
And what you're seeing right now is the crew's thinning.
These peach orchards rely on an irrigation system and hydropower plant, which are key players in steering water downstream. But sometimes the hydropower plant has to shut down because there isn't enough water upstream to flow through its turbines. That's where the corporate partners come in, buying unused water upstream, delivering it to the hydropower plant, which then sends it downstream, benefiting the fish.
We appreciate that the fish people appreciate that we have to make a living too. And when we all work together, we're going to do some good.
It's not a philanthropic investment. We do this as a business decision.
It's a hard-working river. There are people who rely on it for farming, for municipal use, for recreation and boating. And so it's in everybody's best interests to keep the flows as robust as they can be.
Jared Smith, Freshwater News, reporting for the Water Desk.
Still ahead in our next half hour, one ballerina in Utah's capital city shedding light on a problem that's plagued her line of work for decades. Hear her emotional message and a plea for change. Plus, the rise of cyber attacks crippling a major gas pipeline and the world's largest meat supplier in recent weeks. What you can do to protect yourself on the web.
The results are in on surveys about Dixie State University's new name.
Welcome back. An update for you now on a story that we've been following all weekend long. A West Jordan community mourning the loss of a 12-year-old boy. Friday, Miles Moffat was killed in a car accident on Mountain View Corridor. Just a tragic accident. Fox 13's John Franke shows us the inspiring way one neighborhood is dealing with this heartbreak.
Many times in darkness, it's hard to find any light. Faced with the worst of tragedies, this community in West Jordan is rallying in support of a grieving family. On a sun-soaked Sunday afternoon, you'd never know the pain being felt by so many families who live in this neighborhood.
I think everyone's hurting.
The death of Miles Moffat has left a hole in the heart of Rachel Harbert.
Everyone loved him. I taught him at church, and he was always the first one to volunteer at the edge of his seat because he wanted picked and wanted to help out. He's just super cute and fun.
Friday, Miles was killed in a car accident on Mountain View Corridor and 90th South. His brother who was driving was injured and is recovering.
Their family's going to be hurting, and that we should think of something that we can do to serve them that will help us feel better as well.
Instead of being overcome by grief, Rachel's children decided to do something.
It was hard for me because we would play a lot.
I just felt like it's like a good thing to do for their family.
Saturday, they organized this lemonade stand.
I think like 500 something.
A simple gesture that raised more than $5,000, plus dozens of notes of love from friends and strangers.
Just shows that they loved Miles, they loved the family, they want Max to get better, and everybody in the neighborhood was just so generous.
It's a show of support to let the Moffats know they aren't grieving alone and that Miles will not be forgotten.
Sometimes we don't know what to say to comfort people, and we don't know how to help. And if we just ask, what can we do? They may not even know. So we just jump in and do what we can.
Thank you. Thank you.
If you missed Saturday's fundraiser but still want to help the Moffat family, there is a GoFundMe page. We have that link for you on our website. In West Jordan, John Franke, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Oh, such a touching tribute. Thank you, John. Just into the Fox 13 newsroom, we are learning about a crash involving a UTA bus in Magna. Now, this happened near 35th South and 72nd West, close to the O'Reillys in town. 3 passengers and the bus driver were all taken to the hospital, but we're told they are expected to be okay, although you see the damage caused when that bus smashed into that big solid tree. The crash right now is under investigation. We will bring you some updates on this one as soon as we can get them. As the Dixie State University name change process moves forward, a focus group's findings are now providing some new insight into what's going on with it. Fox 13's Ben Winslow reports from Utah's Capitol Hill.
The focus group put together as part of Dixie State's name change process found that roughly 65% of those surveyed support dumping the Dixie name. Love Communications is using focus groups for the university as it looks to change its name. Calls to drop Dixie have grown louder as university officials and students say it's hurting recruitment and retention with its connotations of a Civil War confederacy. Supporters say it's about preserving southwestern Utah's heritage, particularly that of Mormon pioneers. That was top of mind in the focus group, where a report made public this week says people had either fervent support or passionate opposition to it. Focus group comments included, "We have over 100 years of history, and no one has ever said it was a problem. The name change discussion is giving legitimacy to the idea that the word Dixie is racist. This is all just a reaction to cancel culture. And the moment my friend took Dixie off his resume, he got 3 times the interviews. Whether we like it or not, the name is divisive and controversial, and time to lance the boil and get it over with." Other names being floated include Utah Polytechnic University, which commenters say was either forward-looking or comes across as too cheap. Deseret University got props for its ties to southern Utah's heritage, but others say it's too close to one religious group and looks like a typo. Red Cliffs, Red Rock, and Desert had mixed reviews, but names like St. George University and Southwestern Utah State University did better. The legislature passed a bill to begin a name change process. They'll come back to lawmakers with a name later this year. Governor Spencer Cox has said it will not have the name Dixie in it. On the Hill, Ben Winslow, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Two cyber attacks in recent weeks have temporarily brought down a gasoline pipeline that's vital to much of the U.S. and the world's largest meat producer. Fox 13's Jordan Hogan goes in depth on what businesses and individual consumers can do to try to prevent these kinds of attacks.
On May 6th, Colonial Pipeline fell victim to a ransomware cyber attack, which took down the largest fuel pipeline in the country and led to gasoline shortages across the East Coast. Then on May 30th, the largest meat producer in the world, JBS Foods, also became a victim of ransomware, closing down plant operations in the US for a few days. According to a cybersecurity consultant who responded to the cyber attack on Colonial Pipeline, hackers gained access using a compromised password. Both attacks are examples of how major systems can be taken offline if the right measures aren't taken.
In security, there's a concept called defense in depth.
Cybersecurity expert and assistant professor for the School of Computing at the University of Utah, Mu Zhang, said both businesses and individual consumers need to take all the steps they can to prevent hacks like these.
The attackers actually need to first find a vulnerability so that they can get into the system.
To close these openings, Zhang recommends installing the latest security updates for your computer, using antivirus software and scanning for viruses often, changing your passwords often, using two-factor authentication, and not opening emails if you don't know who they're from, or opening attachments from unknown email addresses.
It will be more useful to also store a offline backup, right? So which is not connected to the internet, right? Air-gapped.
The reason why an offline backup is important too is because ransomware hackers will usually delete your online backup, so they have the only copy.
The victims should learn a lesson, right, from this attack, right? Try to back up their data, right, and store it in a safer place, right, so as to prevent from future attacks.
Ransomware attacks may seem more popular right now because every time a big company pays the ransom to get back their data, hackers are more motivated to do it again.
The real-world incidents have shown that they can make a real profit.
Hackers tend to go after big businesses rather than individuals because that's where they'll make the most money. That's why it's important that employees take steps to prevent hackers from logging into systems using their information. In Salt Lake City, I'm Jordan Hogan reporting.
A famous ballerina, meantime, that calls Ballet West here in Salt Lake City home, is speaking out against a problem she says is there in dance culture. She says it's one that's emotionally damaged generations of people. Elizabeth Ruiz has the story.
Kenny, do you have a new lead for today?
Catherine Morgan has had a love for dance all her life, and she's good at it too. At age 17, she was hired at the New York City Ballet, where she soon became a soloist. She was living out her dream. But then at 21, she was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease.
In very layman's terms, your body attacks itself. And as a professional athlete, it was terrifying because my muscles started to disintegrate, my hair fell out, and I gained 45 pounds in 6 weeks.
It's when she got back into the dance world 7 years later that she realized a huge problem in the industry had not gone away.
You still have to be exceedingly small, and you still have to fit that mold, and the standard is so extreme. And I just didn't fit that.
Catherine says roles were taken away from her, and she was told awful things about her body. She says body shaming is something almost every dancer can relate to. Its impact is harmful and long-lasting.
I have people saying, "Dear Catherine, I'm 12 years old and I've been on a diet for 3 years and I'll never look like that, and my dream is to dance, but I think I'm too big." I've had 55-year-old women message me and say, "I have an eating disorder from when I was in ballet at age 16 and I'm still dealing with it at 55. I have personal friends who I danced with growing up who will never go to the ballet ever again because of the experiences they've had.
For years, Catherine says ballet dancers have been expected to live and die for the art form, jeopardizing their physical and mental health.
It's a very hierarchy-based system where the person at the front of the room is literally God, and they will determine your career, they will determine the roles that you get, and if you don't please them, that's it. It's a very also opinionated job.
Catherine says it's time for this toxic culture to change.
It's time we have to start challenging our eyes and what we think is the standard. Why is it like that? Because that's how it is in ballet. Why? You know, it's time to start challenging that viewpoint.
Catherine says skeptics will say there's an element of physics to ballet, and that's why it's valuable to be thin. However, she believes there's a happy medium.
I think the problem with ballet is that oftentimes body type is the first thing we look at. We don't look at the artistry first. We don't look at the talent first. And it's starting to dampen the industry because so many of us can't get to be that small. And so the problem is you lose your talent pool.
The first step to change is talking about it.
The second step is having teachers who are more aware of phrasing in their classes, how they say something to a student. You know, there's a big difference between pull your stomach in and support with your core.
Change won't happen overnight, but it can happen as dancers now become teachers in the future. And if you personally have experienced body shaming, this is Catherine's message for you.
You are worth so much more than what you look like in the mirror. You are worth so much more than the size that the tag says in your pants. That's not what makes you a good human being. You know, it's what's on the inside. It's how you treat other people. It's, are you being a role model for other people? Are you going after your goals and dreams? That's what defines you, not what you look like in the mirror.
In Salt Lake City, Utah, I'm Elizabeth Ruiz reporting.
A really beautiful message. Much more for you coming up next here on our show. Students at one middle school in Jordan School District getting to create something very cool using these Rubik's Cubes. We're going to show you what they made.
That is cool. And we've got something cool in the forecast. Yeah, cold front on the way. When does it hit? I'll let you know.
And later in sports, the Jazz gearing up for round 2 on Tuesday, but they need someone to play, and they finally do. A recap of Game 7 from the Staples Center between the Clippers and the Mavericks. Could the road team do it yet again? Back in a bit.
7th and 8th grade math students at Elk Ridge Middle School in South Jordan spent their last day of school solving Rubik's Cubes, all to make some mosaics. Fox 13's Lauren Steinbrecher shows us how their math skills, combined with some teamwork, turned into something positively Utah.
A piece of paper put on plastic lunch trays.
They don't know what it looks like.
Is a small part of a bigger picture.
Are we just going? Yeah, you just go.
It's a map of sorts as these kids twist their way toward the final product. 7th and 8th grade math students at Elk Ridge Middle School in South Jordan are working together.
Which one are you doing right now? I just did the yellow.
Piecing together Rubik's Cube portraits. The students don't even know yet what they're making. For now, it's all about which color goes where.
Last week, we taught all the students in 7th and 8th grade how to solve a Rubik's Cube. We take some of the principles that they learned while they were solving the cube, the whole thing, and then we say, hey, you just need to solve one face. We focus on, you know, making the cross, and then we make the edge pieces. And you'll see kids start to get it. Once the kids get the program and everything and they understand what they need to do, they just dive in.
It was super intense.
Moving quickly in a race against the clock.
I can tell you that putting this together this quickly was one of the most amazing experiences I've had as a teacher.
They reveal the big picture in only 15 minutes, and it's someone you might recognize.
I feel great. It makes me feel accomplished because I've done this huge picture with many of my friends, and I love the Jazz, so it's pretty cool.
In all, the kids used 420 Rubik's Cubes to make what we must say is an impressive mosaic of Utah Jazz guard Donovan Mitchell.
I think the value of it is they love knowing how to do something that's hard. I think every person loves that. And if they can get done with this, we can teach them how to do it in a period or a week or whatever it takes if they'll stick with it. And then they get a huge sense of accomplishment when they're done with that.
Lauren Steinbrecher, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Oh, I love it so much. Congratulations to all those kids. And there's more. The students also made mosaics of Rudy Gobert and every administrator at Elk Ridge Middle School. They look so good. The teachers say they hope to get more Rubik's Cubes to make even bigger mosaics in the future. I have a new decorating idea for my house now, Brack.
Oh, there you go.
Get out the Rubik's Cubes.
How about a mosaic of us, right? Here's the pose. Let me see it. All right. Well, as we take a look outside right now, the mosaic here, and what we're seeing across the state, a lot of sunshine, still warm temperatures, afternoon highs above normal, but not quite as hot. Yeah, we're getting a little bit of a break with an additional break as we move forward. Looking though, we don't see the thunderstorms as we saw yesterday afternoon rolling through Tooele County, picking up the winds and those brief showers. That's just not the case here today. As we are in the 80s at this hour, at least in Salt Lake City, Ogden, a little bit warmer though in Provo. Again, our average high for this time of year, we should be about 80 degrees. Now we're going to still keep it hot. We've got a cooling trend. I've been saying it's going to be a gradual downward slide. with a more significant drop by the middle of the week, because we have a couple of storms that are going to be pushing through and clipping portions of northern Utah. So we're not going to see much rain from these storms, but we'll usher in this cooler air, and it will be a welcome sight and feeling a lot better, especially as we go towards the end of the week. Red flag warnings, though, as we're going to be picking up the winds, as we have been seeing that focus across central and southern Utah, but the winds enhancing and increasing for northern Utah come tomorrow. Now, we are seeing a few clouds across eastern Utah, a little bit of green, which indications, as we see, not much rain hitting the ground. We don't see any isolated thunderstorms at this hour, and that should not be any issue moving forward here for the rest of the day. We're under this westerly flow. We had a little weak front move through that dropped temperatures today. Another cool front which looks to just clip northern Utah. It's the one behind that by Wednesday will be pushing through. Let's talk about, though, the chances of showers as we give you a view from the computer models looking over the whole week. Again, we had that little bit of moisture across eastern Utah. That pushes away. For your forecast tomorrow, it's going to be clear initially starting off. Maybe some clouds tracking through southern Utah. We'll see periods of clouds, and then that pushes away. Maybe a mountain shower as we push into Tuesday, but no significant rain, no direct hit. We get the cold front, but most of the moisture moving north. You can see it clips near the Utah-Idaho border. We get the colder air, but the shower staying to the north and to the east. Again, it's going to be dry over the next 7 days. And what I was hoping, though, that we start to see maybe a possibility of some showers next weekend, doesn't look like we're going to get much. So, yes, a nice reprieve from the heat, especially by the middle of the week, but we need the rain. We're not going to get much here over the next 7 days. Tonight, it's mostly clear skies, though. Overnight lows, still fairly mild. It is an opportunity to open up those windows, cool off the house. It looks better, though, each and every day as we move forward, as we'll see those overnight lows getting down actually along the Wasatch Front in the 50s later on. But tonight, it's mid to upper 60s, 50s through central Utah. Now, because of that cool front, the first one moving north, it kicks up the winds of the south winds, or southwest, I should say, which means the thermometer is on the rise for tomorrow. Back into the low 90s, Ogden through Provo, as well as Vernal and Price, upper 90s in Moab, but a nice 86 degrees in Cedar City, and you avoid the triple digits for St. George. And you actually hold on to the 90s for the next several days, even 80s on Thursday. Sunny skies, you got the breezes tomorrow, but then hot temperatures by next weekend. Northern Utah, it's 90s, and that's what we're looking at up through Wednesday. Then it's 70s. Yeah, that stronger cold front really doing the mark there, as we'll see even some nice 80s on Friday. Back into the 90s, though, Saturday and Sunday. Most of the day we'll have sunshine, or most days, I should say, except Tuesday and Thursday, partly cloudy skies. But not a lot of rain, but a break from the heat, at least Thursday.
What a wild, unexpected ride in round one of the NBA playoffs. The Jazz having just as much fun as anybody watching the Clippers and Mavericks take their series. The full 7 games. LA winning all 3 games in Dallas, and Dallas winning the first 3 games in LA. But could they get a fourth? Watching these two studs go back and forth has been a real treat. Start with a dose of Kawhi. More than one crossover before making his move like a magnet for the rim. Other side, Luka Doncic starts to play with a wraparound. Kristaps Porzingis to cap it. His length is almost mesmerizing through the air. The Clippers did carry an 8-point lead into the locker room. Reggie Jackson doesn't care how far away he is. Dallas back up 5 with a great start to the third. More Porzingis. But then the Paperclips just took over. More like Leonard took over. Nasty baseline flush. Kawhi with 28 finished 1 assist shy of a triple-double. Then LA getting good minutes from an unlikely source. Luke Kennard tickling some twine. The lead 14 and building fast. If anybody can spark a miracle comeback, it's that guy. What a sick shot. 3 of his 46, but Jackson quickly puts an end to any rally. And there it is, 126-111. The home team finally steps up inside their own house. The Jazz will have a total of 6 days away from the court when they host the Clippers for Game 1 of Round 2 on Tuesday. Of course, we're hoping Mike Conley will be ready to go by then. Conley re-aggravated his right hamstring in Game 5 against the Grizzlies, the same hammy that has given him fits all season long. Rudy Gobert says battling through injury woes is all part of this process.
You know, we found ways to win without some of our key guys this year. Obviously, it's not as easy when you're not 100%, but, you know, regardless of who's available, you know, we're gonna adapt and find ways to win. You know, that's what great teams do, and, you know, hopefully, you know, Mike is working really hard, he's doing everything he can to be back. If he's not back Game 1, maybe back in 2, I don't know. Whenever he's not back, you know, we're gonna do everything we can to be the best team that we can be.
Go out east for the start of Sixers-Hawks. The result might surprise you, though not the Knicks, who Atlanta just took out in 5. Trae Young, if you haven't heard of this guy yet, perhaps you have now. He was an absolute moneyball machine today for Atlanta. Young this time setting the table for John Collins. The Hawks up on the top seed by 22 in the first half. Make that 23. The triple certainly not stopping. 25 for Young, 35 for the game. Look at that range. Philly did begin to close the gap in the fourth. Seth Curry with a nice dribble back and drain from the corner. Cuts it to 7 with $1:41 left. The MVP, Joel Embiid, did return from a sore knee, only to drop 39 on Sunday. And the Sixers did get within 2 late, only to watch the Hawks throw down an exclamation point to seal it. Young and Collins teaming up again, 128-124, as the 5 seed steals game 1. And this is one of the funniest things I have ever seen. College World Series game against Arizona State in Fairfield. The pitcher throws a ball that lands right into the home plate umpire's pocket. Fairfield's catcher looking for the ball, can't find it. How wild is that one? 1 in a million. We'll be right back.
Finally at 5 here for you, Prince Harry and Meghan, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, are welcoming their second child. Today, the royal couple announced the birth of Lilibet Diana Mountbatten Windsor, or Lily for short. The couple says Lily was born Friday, June 4th at 11:40 a.m. in Santa Barbara, California, and weighed 7 pounds 11 ounces. The statement from the couple's press secretary says both mother and child are healthy and well and settling in at home. It also said Lily is named after her great-grandmother, Her Majesty the Queen, whose family nickname is Lilibet. Her middle name, Diana, of course, chosen to honor her beloved late grandmother, the Princess of Wales. Oh, I wish them the very best. They've been in the news quite a bit, but a new baby, fun to celebrate. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you tonight at 9.